everybody, how are you on this wonderful day? In today's video I'm going to be going into part 3 of my twin flame story. So it's 2008, I'd only come into the recognition of who he was to me a few weeks earlier. I had just got out of a relationship that I should have got out years before then, and I was setting off to see my twin flame. Not that I knew what twin flames were at the time, and I wasn't going to know about that for a good few years to come yet. I still had absolutely no idea what this was. And a friend who had helped me out when nobody else had given me a little bit of Dutch courage to just go and see him and find out one way or another. And so I set off. Unfortunately, my ex-partner found out where I was going, because I had a bit of an issue. It's like in my previous video I was saying how my friend had encouraged me to go and see my twin flame, and I was a bit too scared to at first, but he psyched me up, and so I was thinking, yeah, hooray, I'm going to see him. And the only person that I'd really been able to talk about this with had been my second dad, Steve. He's no longer with us, unfortunately, and he had been a huge help, but he was now in Thailand. So I went to text him, hooray, I'm going to see my person. And, you know, they say the devil makes work for idle thumbs. I pressed the wrong button on my phone and it sent the text out to everyone. And because my ex-partner's name began with A, he was the first one in my phone book, and he was the first one to get that message. And he phoned, and so, like I said, I was like, oh, I'm sorry, that message wasn't meant for you. Yeah, not very good. And that entire week he had been harassing me and bombarding me with phone calls to try and mess my head up. He was just desperate to stop me going one way or another. But certainly harassing me was never gonna make me want to take him back. Yeah, and he kept on at it, so yeah, I turned my phone off, and yeah, I set off to see my person. I had no idea what I was going to find when I got there, or how it would be, or anything. And I was on the motorway. Was only about half an hour from home. It was about 4.5 hour journey, and my consciousness, for some reason, raised a little bit, and I had a moment of clarity, and I felt less emotional and more clear. And an upset arose, because I thought, well, of course I won't be able to have him because I love him. That's it. That's a core block. It's been there from the beginning. I didn't know it was a core block at the time. I just thought it was an intrinsic part of reality. This is what the work taught by Jeff and Shilly teaches people to unlearn. Anyways, yeah, the journey was quite eventful. I wrote an awful lot about the journey there in my journal afterwards, and by the time I was, say, half an hour from my twin's town, I was absolutely buzzing. Just the thought of never seeing my ex's family ever again. And they were in northeast Scotland, I was now in southwest England. Just the thought of being so far away from them all just felt so good. And yeah, and then I arrived in his town. I had an hour or two spare before the event was due to start, so I went on a little walk. It was the first time I'd been in this part of the world. I did a little bit of reconnaissance along the seafront. The place was full of Spanish exchange students, and yeah, by 9 o'clock the sun started to go down and the emotions, the tensions started to rise. So I headed over to the club, and yeah, it's not a club anymore, but it has had quite a bit of history in that area. And yeah, I was in the queue and I was overhearing the conversation of the people behind me. Somebody was asking around if anyone had any chewing gum, and then he mentioned that he'd been at the NEC that previous New Year. I talk about that in one of my previous episodes. And my ears pricked up and I turned around and I said, "You was at the NEC at New Year? Here, have some chewing gum." It's a little good deed for the day. And so I get in, I go in the smaller room, and yeah, there he was. And I spoke to him. Because previously to that he'd been very attracted to my spirituality, whether he later admitted it or not, and I got paranoid that I'd been creating bad karma because it felt like I'd had some ulterior motives in there somewhere, and if you use your spirituality for that, then it reverses it all. That was what I was thinking at the time. So I thought, well, I better be honest, I better come clean, better put all the cards on the table. And so I did, and I had to say something that had been in my consciousness. It had been left unsaid, because in the previous episode, I believe it was the previous episode, maybe the one before, I was experiencing this incredible connection. I had no idea what it was. I had no idea what was happening to me. I thought that it was lust, because I had no reference point for it, and I had spoken to Phil, my schizophrenic friend, about it, and he told me off. He said, "Be careful what you say, you're going to freak him out." And I thought, well, freak him out? What does he think I'm going to say? "Hey man, I'm going to tie you up and fuck you stupid." No, don't be silly, don't be silly. However, that thought, ever since then, had been going round and round in my head, unsaid. And it was time to put all the cards on the table. So I said to my twin flame, "I've been talking about the spiritual stuff, but I have to be talking about it for the right reasons." So what I was actually wanting to say was, I had his undivided attention. And then I said, "Will you let me tie you up and fuck you stupid?" And he went, "Oh, I've never really thought of it." Liar. So yeah, so I said it, yeah, I put it out there. And yeah, then what happened was I told him about the situation with my ex, and he saw that I had been pretty distressed about it and very vulnerable at the time. And he showed me the most immeasurable kindness. He went absolutely above and beyond to make sure that I was okay. I mean, he did so much more than the bare minimum. He treated me the way that he'd want someone to treat his daughter. And yeah, unconditional love there, because I turned up in a point of unconditional love, and that's what I got back. I didn't get what I wanted, but I certainly got what I needed. It felt so healing to be sat there with him after all the palaver that I'd been around prior to that. And yeah, he was so good. He got to the point where he ran out of questions to ask, and yeah, I was sat there, I was admiring how beautiful he was, and I noticed, of course, that he was wearing a wedding ring, and I felt like I'd just been stabbed. And well, I thought, all right, that's it, game over. Oofafu, oofafu. Alright, okay, looks like I'm going home tonight, and yeah, and then at the end I was dancing and he got up to say goodbye, and he'd said he'd got a taxi there, so I asked him if he fancied a lift home. That's all. I just wanted him to see me little Mazda. I wasn't trying to be inappropriate, but he said, I'm a married man, and I reacted in a very frustrated way, not because I was upset, but because everything had gone so fantastically well so far, and I just felt understood. And he looked really worried that I was upset, and so I smiled and waved at him, and he waved back and left, and that was the last time I saw him in for 3.5 years. So I finished listening to that particular set and set off home. My ex had been trying to get my attention, which is why I'd left my phone in the boot. He'd actually sent a message threatening to kill my pet rats if I didn't reply, which I didn't get that message till I got home. It actually took 3 hours to get home. And when I arrived, I saw that my ex had put the rat's cage outside on the forecourt. We lived above a showroom. I mean, a neighbour was there, so they didn't escape or anything or get lost. But because of that, because that was happening, and my first priority was making sure my pets were all right. Yeah, so that actually caused me to overlook the trouble that the neighbour was trying to cause in my situation. Yeah, she had been after my ex. I mean, she was perfectly welcome to him, and she wanted to hear what had happened last night with my twin flame. And I said, oh, no, it didn't happen. I mean, that would have been predictable, but it's much deeper than that. It's a spiritual thing. This way, it's poetry. And she pulled a face like a bulldog chewing a wasp. But that was a minor thing, because I was concerned about my pets. And my ex was still in the area. He came in and we had a huge row. He anyway, long story short, it raised its ugly head again, the relationship that I'd been hoping to leave. So, what did I do about this situation? I fucked off to a Buddhist monastery for 4 years, and we're already at 14 minutes, so I'm going to save that one for the next episode. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.